Welcome to the introductory lecture for the Training the Athletic Brain course. Now, this course really is like no other. Okay, by the end of it, you're going to have a really deep understanding about how the athletic brain functions. Okay, how it develops over time from the very beginning, where kids are very young, to right up to the point where kids turn into real expert performers in sport. Okay, and we're going to look at research from lots and lots of different fields like neuroscience, psychology, skill acquisition, and put it in the context of real practical day-to-day coaching strategies. So we're going to think about and talk about all the underlying theory behind how the athletic brain develops and can most efficiently be developed in terms of optimizing skill learning experiences. And then we're going to try and think, this is how you can do it from day to day in your coaching. And we'll talk about lots of different sports, and then you can apply the knowledge to your specific sport. So our first section in the course is our introduction, which we're in now. Okay, then we're going to go on to number 2, which is the brain basics. Now, this is where we just cover the underlying structure of the human brain. We'll talk about how brain cells connect to each other, how they communicate to each other, how different brain areas start to communicate, and talk about things like brain complexity and integration, and relate back this to sports skills, okay? And not just the physical side of the sports skills, but also the real perceptual side of sports skills, anticipation, recognizing patterns. And we're going to talk a lot about adaptable motor skills over the course, and you'll understand how someone's brain starts to form over time, so that allows them to produce these expert skills. Okay, so that's the brain basics. That'll give us our underlying knowledge of the brain that we need to progress through the rest of the course with. Okay, then we're going to look at some expert sports, and we're going to look at exactly how their brain is working that allows them to be capable of expert skills. Okay, we'll use a case study in basketball. We'll look at tennis and golf and look at the difference between when you're playing under time pressure and no time pressure, and how that impacts decision making. So you'll get a really good understanding about how an expert's brain is actually working, what different parts of the brain are doing what, how it accesses memory to read sporting situations in milliseconds, etc., etc. So by the end of it, like I said, you'll really have a good understanding about how the actual human brain works to produce expert sporting skills. Okay, then we're going to talk about how the brain grows and changes over time as it's acquiring expert sport skills. So what actually happens to the brain as it goes along its pathway. We'll talk a lot about developmental trajectories in this section as well, which is a really important concept to understand in relation to the development of not just physical sporting skills, but also there's the psychological traits as well. Okay, and by the end of that section, you'll have once again a good understanding about how a human brain would go from the point where it's a young, immature brain capable of only basic skills to be able to produce these sport-specific skills in milliseconds that under huge amounts of pressure that amaze us. Then moving on to section 5, and we'll look at the defining features of expert performers. Okay, and you'll be quite surprised with this section, because in most cases people aren't that familiar with what the research in terms of sports expertise research that says what are the things that make the difference between the best athletes, the experts, compared to the sub-elites. Okay, and it's not what you think. So we'll have a look at the research and what the research tells us about what the defining features or the defining capabilities of expert performers are. In number 6, what's really important is to understand the skill development pathway. If we're going to talk about the athletic brain and how the athletic brain comes about in terms of being able to produce expert sporting capabilities, this happens over a very long period of time. Okay, so we need to have a look at where we start, and we're talking about babies and toddlers all the way through to expert athletes, and we'll have a look at what experiences the research tells us is the most important at the different stages of baby, toddler, kid, young athlete, mature athlete, professional athlete, expert. What experiences do they need all along the way? So we break it into sections, and we have a look. We use a lot of research there to actually inform us about what's important. And we're not just talking about this from a physical sports skill development. We're also talking about the development of psychological behaviours in terms of motivation, fun, the willingness to compete, self-improve, all these different factors that we've drawn in from lots and lots of different fields to understand what's important at what ages to train this athletic brain most effectively. Okay, we're going to look in number 7 at the key principles of skill acquisition according to sports expertise research. So these are the 12 principles taken from all the research that tell us what are the principles we need to adhere to in our coaching philosophy day in, day out, with drill design, coaching, session design, through to long-term planning. What principles do we need to adhere to ensure that we are maximizing the skill learning experiences of athletes at different ages? Okay, the 12 principles, and if you can, it sounds like a lot, but really important that you have a good grasp of these 12 principles, and it will make a difference to your coaching for life. Okay, we're going to delve into exactly what biomechanics, technique, and skill are. And we're going to talk about why we should always be coming back to skill. Don't let this constant stream of information about technique and biomechanics overtake what our end goal is in terms of skill. Understand that biomechanics and technique are just small subsets of skill, of experts' proficient sporting skills. Okay, you need to understand the difference between these ones if you're ever going to be able to successfully go about developing expert sporting skills for young athletes, kids, all the way through to professional athletes. We'll talk about psychology, the development of psychological traits, desirable psychological traits that allow people to achieve their potential and continue to self-improve, compete under pressure, be resilient, mentally tough, etc. So how do these traits emerge over time? And we put that into context with how the human brain develops, both in terms of genetics and their experiences that we have over time, and how these things interrelate and what we can actually influence as coaches and parents. We're going to have a good look at mindfulness as well. So there's some great research being done on mindfulness, and we'll put that research into context with what you can do as a coach and understanding exactly what mindfulness is. And we're going to, one thing that and this is actually one of the principles from the skill acquisition, but we're going to have a look at it even in some more depth, because it really relates to this psychology and mindfulness section, is ambitious learning. And why ambitious learning is just hands down one of the most important things, and if you don't have that, people won't achieve their potential. And how can you go about nurturing ambitious learners over time? And if you can do that, even if you don't do a lot of other things that well, this will potentially have the biggest impact on how good someone gets in their chosen sport. Okay, then we put it all into coaching practice. We take all this theory, all this knowledge, and we put this knowledge into coaching practice. We have a look at actual outcomes, okay, actual coaching outcomes. What can you do, okay, practically in your coaching that reflects you having all this knowledge, and then so that you can do a better job in developing the athletic brain. And then we have a quick look to finish at the future. Where's all this knowledge going? How's it going to allow us to innovate? What technology can we use in the future? What technology is potentially going to be available for us to actually use to innovate and get an advantage on competitors, sporting federations, other countries, etc. Okay, and we're going to, interesting in this one, we actually have a little section in this one where old is new again, which is where we actually have a look at why we actually have to go back to doing some of the things that we used to do a lot better, or that used to happen a lot better, based on now what this more contemporary research tells us about the human brain functions and how it grows and develops. Okay, and that'll be our final section when we delve into the future. So that's a Training Athletic Brain course. We've got 11 sections in store for you. We've got loads and loads of video lectures. Every section's got a number of different lectures in it, mostly videos, but some written articles as well, some downloadable PDFs as well. So hope you enjoy the course. And no doubt this is going to, for any coach from skill-based sports, will make a massive difference to your coaching moving forwards. And I hope you can continue to draw on this information for your coaching careers. Hope you enjoy the course.